Morning everybody, thanks for your attendance. First of all, apologies for absence.
Got apologies from Councillor Tom Hollis.
Tom Hollis, we think Councillor Lee might be running late. Any declarations of interest? No?
No.
Minutes of the last meeting from page 3. First of all, matters of accuracy. Have we got any colleagues?
Yeah.
No? Any matters arising? No? We agree them? Agreed? Brilliant. Okay, item 4 is the Human Resources Update, which I believe Nick and Matt presented.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'll start with the first bit of the report and then I'll pass you over to Matt to quickly run through the equalities metrics that are in there. This is the report that is produced on a quarterly basis to update members on the key human resource metrics, and it's for the period 1st of October to the 31st of December 2023. So if we're working through it, in terms of staffing numbers, during this period there were 12 employees who commenced employment and there were 20 leavers. And as at the 31st of December, we had a whole-time strength establishment of 414 operational personnel employees against an establishment of 431 posts. To bridge that gap, the service has undertaken a process to transfer in firefighters from other services, which has resulted in 15 competent firefighters being appointed to Notts Fire and Rescue Service, made up of 11 firefighters, 2 watch managers and 2 crew managers, and of these 4 commenced during the review period and a further 11 commenced in early 2024. In addition to that, the service has also undertaken a whole-time apprentice firefighter recruitment campaign, which commenced in August 2023, with interviews taking place in January 2024. This has resulted in 34 appointments, and then the first trainee course commences on the 22nd of April, and there is a report on agenda which will provide more information around that on the agenda. In terms of moving on to the absence stats, there was an increase in this quarter in terms of absence of 299.5 days compared on the previous quarter. This almost certainly relates to seasonal factors, which is always higher in this, historically higher in this period than the preceding quarter. Long-term sickness actually equated for 57% of that sickness absence, and that broke down to 47.9% for operational personnel and 70% for our support employees. In terms of the report, Appendix A gives trends over the last 3 years, so members are directed to that to get an idea of trends within that. Moving on to on-call, absence figures increased by 122 days during the review period, but this was a decrease on the same quarter in equivalent quarter in 2022-23 of 39 days, and again long-term absence equated to 58.6% of total sickness absence. In terms of the report, again, Appendix C provides a breakdown of the summary of the reasons for the absence by work group, and our sickness absence very much mirrors the national trends around musculoskeletal and mental health sickness being featuring significantly. In terms of national trends, the service contributes to the National Fire Chiefs Quarterly Sickness Absence Survey. For whole-time staff, the Notts Fire and Rescue has an average of 6.91 days lost per employee, which ranked as 16th out of 35 services, and for on-call the figure was 12.25 days, which ranked as 16th out of the 22 services. In terms of Green Book, this figure was 11.87 days, which ranked us down towards the bottom end, 34th out of 35 services. However, that can largely be attributed to the level of long-term sickness that we had experienced in that quarter, which equated, as I said earlier, to 70%, which has quite a significant impact on our figures. And then finally, moving on to the workforce metrics, we had one disciplinary hearing during that period, which did result in a dismissal. One grievance was heard but not upheld, and we had 4 employees who were unsuccessful through their probation. We had 3 on-call firefighters and 1 firefighter apprentice who didn't get through their training. So that brings me to the end of the first part of the report. I'll pass you over to Matt, who's just going to quickly run through the equalities metrics, and then if there's any questions at the end of that, we can answer those. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Morning, everybody. So for the equality monitoring element of the report, which goes from paragraph 2.29, this is for the 6 months from 1st October 23 to the 31st of March 2024. So the previous part of the report was on a quarter, this is on 6 months. So just drawing you to paragraph 2.30, you've got an outline of some of the key indicators that the service looks at within the organisation. So representative of firefighters who are women, people from ethnic minorities who are working in the organisation, those who are in whole-time operational firefighting roles, people who identify as being lesbian, gay or bisexual, and those who are disabled as well. As you can see, the numbers haven't massively changed over the last 6 months. I should point out that the numbers from the recent whole-time firefighter campaign, which is covered in the next report, didn't make it into the last 6 months because they've come into the organisation this April, so they won't be in these figures. I just need to point that out to you. So just moving down to 2.31, women currently constitute 16.9% of the total workforce, and ethnic minorities 5.8%. That's against current census figures of 14.64%. The figures for those who consider themselves to be lesbian, gay or bisexual are very good and continue to be good at 3.9%. That's against a census figure of 2.68%. Just a bit of a health warning on that figure. That's the first time that that's been measured within the national census. So those figures may change in future censuses over the next few years. Sorry.
Yeah.
Have you got a question? Yeah. Sorry.
Can I or?
Yeah, we should wait to the end and we'll ask the question.
Yeah,
Is that
okay.
right?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. In operational roles, we can see that 5.6% are women within supervisory positions, and 22.2% are women in strategic operational roles. In terms of ethnic background, this is for whole-time operational roles in supervisory positions, 8 of 144, so that's 5.6%, but none in middle or senior management positions. We are working this year to develop talent management tools within the organisation, so that includes the National Fire Chiefs Council, Career Conversations and Talent Grid, which helps us to identify potential and then develop those people. And so that is something that we will be developing over the next few months. I wanted to draw your attention to the numbers for support roles. They're really, really encouraging. So as you can see, that's outlined in a table, and it's split down by grade. And as you can see, the numbers for men and women are 50% and 50%, which is really, really good. 10% for disability, 9.5% for people from ethnic minority backgrounds, and then 5.9% for LGB employees, which is really, really good to see, and we're making some progress in those areas. We've got a piece of work that we're doing with Nottingham University to understand the representation within the city and county more effectively, so we understand what's happened with the census figures and with the recent census, and we'll be using that information to inform our 10-year workforce diversity plan over the next few months, and that's something that we're developing. There'll be a paper going to Policy and Strategy Committee very soon. There's also a piece of work that we're doing with Into People, which is a set of focus groups within Nottingham to have a better understanding of barriers to employment for people and how we can encourage more people from ethnic minorities and women into firefighting roles and to careers more generally in the fire and rescue service. In terms of the recruitment, so 2.34, there's a very, very brief paragraph there outlining what happened with whole-time recruitment this year, but there's obviously the next paper is covering that, so I'm not going to go into any huge detail. And there's been one on-call course where there's been one female recruit. I don't think there's anything further that I wanted to go into. That's probably all.
Okay, thanks Nick, thanks Matt. Questions, colleagues? Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah. Actually, I want to know from the page 15, the agenda and 2.30.
Yeah.
I want to know, these, it says BAME employees or Asians, minority ethnic employees, 48.
Yeah.
And the BAME 26.
Yeah.
Are they involved in every role? I know the report says they're not in senior, management and.
Yeah.
But are they in operational roles as well?
Yeah. So in the 48 figure, the 5.8% figure is for the whole workforce. So that is support staff, on-call firefighters and whole-time firefighters. So that's the kind of total figure. And then the column next to it is those ethnic minority employees in whole-time firefighting positions. So they're the firefighters that we employ on a full-time basis. So that's highlighted there.
Are they the firefighting? Mm-hmm. Are they with the women's involved as well?
In terms of ethnic minorities,
The minorities, yeah.
The numbers are small.
So,
and that is.
You mean there are some?
Yeah, there are some, yeah. But they are small, and that's one of the things that we want to do some more investigation on. So that the piece of work that I mentioned just now about focus groups, we want to do some specific work asking people about their experiences of the fire and rescue service and whether they would consider us as an employer of choice. So that's a piece of work that's going to be completed in the next few months, and we'll be reporting back to members on the progress that's been made.
Because I had, I've been to on the radio few times and encouraging people to, this is a very, very good, firefighter services and that.
Yeah.
And that people showing the interest.
Yeah. Numbers of women from ethnic minority backgrounds applying is low, and so the success rate, the numbers coming through is also.
Is there many males in the service?
Yeah, and I've got some. The next paper kind of covers some of the detail on that, so we can cover that in the next paper if that's okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is any more patients?
Yeah, following up from what Castle Khan said, you mentioned about support. What kind of support are you giving according to global employee in the middle and senior manager role? So what form of, I didn't really get you when you were saying it, the form of support.
So we need to do more targeted support. Damien West, who's sat in the room, is leading on a piece of work within his department for the development of supervisory managers, and then we'll be getting to middle managers as well. And that's broadly about the development pathways that we have for those groups of staff. But part of that will be, well, what are we doing to provide support and positive action for ethnic minority staff moving into supervisory middle and senior positions. That's definitely something that needs to be more of a priority, and also for women as well. So that is something that we are doing. And I think we've probably talked a bit about this before, but if you've not got the critical mass in firefighter positions and supervisory positions, you don't get those people moving into middle and senior. So we need to make sure that we are encouraging people to apply for firefighter positions and supervisory to get them to move on. So in terms of the support, the work on talent management is something that we need to do as well. So I talked about career conversations and the National Fire Chiefs Council talent grid, which is a way of identifying good people to bring forwards, and that's going to be happening over the next 12 months. So we will be we'll be developing that work, and hopefully we can bring some of the fruits of our labour back to this committee.
We're going to talk about it later on, aren't we, in terms of there's another paper? Because I mean, I think there are big issues here, aren't there, obviously, that you're identifying with women as well, in particular, with only 10% in full-time and on-call roles. I mean, that's a huge disparity compared to what we want. Could I ask a couple of questions myself, if that's okay? There are some trends we're concerned about, they're obviously trying to address. This is your part, Nick. When you look at support staff absence, for example, Green Book employees, 2.13 says that 70%, 70.7%, nearly 71% is long-term absence. And then when we look at the appendices, there's quite a lot off with musculoskeletal, but also mental or illness or stress. And our figures, I believe, are about the second worst in the country for this, aren't they? So that's sending alarm bells for me. What are we doing in order to support those colleagues and get people back to work is the first question. The second question, is there anything in the workplace that's making people ill or we need to be aware of? Because that does seem to be, unusual compared to the rest of the country.
Yeah, I think in terms of that period, just some information really. There were 12 people who were on long-term sickness with a number of various reasons really, different reasons. We manage that through our absence management, so anybody who goes off long-term sick will be referred into our occupational health in line with our sickness absence reporting processes. We have regular case conferences, and we have a regular review every 6 weeks to review those cases. Support will be offered through occupational health, and as appropriate we have a whole range of support. So if it is a mental health issue, there's a whole range of support that we provide as a service in terms of talking therapies that individuals can access. We've got the 24-hour telephone support. We work with Mind, the Firefighters charity as well. So there's a range of things there that people can actually access. In terms of musculoskeletal, we have a fitness advisor who provides support out around those areas and can support. And what we try to do is clearly, when somebody's getting to the point where they can hopefully get back to work, maybe on a modified duty basis, which is where they may not be back on full duties, but we're trying to get them back into the workplace. We will work with them in terms of their fitness and to give them the best support going. And we also link in with the Firefighters charity on that, so they've got access to some of the best facilities you could ever have in terms of rehab and physio for them. So there's a range of things there. I think clearly well-being is a key part of our people strategy. We realise it's an important part of it, and that's something that we do focus on. As I said, absolutely agree that we don't want to be right towards the bottom of that list, and I think that's acknowledged, and we will work towards that. What I would say though is that 10 of those individuals during that period are now either back at work or have finished with work, so we have worked to get those people back. So that was there were some specific issues around that period where we had a number of people off with different reasons. Hopefully now that a lot of those are back at work, we'll hopefully see some improvement there, but we continue to monitor that. We do have an absence review group at a high strategic level which looks at these trends and to get a consideration and to see where they are, if there are any specific reasons why in terms of departments, maybe where there might be an issue, and clearly if there is, we will get underneath that and actually do some work maybe to address that with that department and see if we can improve the figures there.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to interfere operationally because on call looks, it's about average, isn't it? And there's understandable. There's injuries there, physical injuries. You think fine. It's just the support staff is so high. You think, well, what is the reason for that? Are we deeply unfortunate, or is it happens as you saying in the department? But I won't go into that too much. I think looking at that and some of the stuff we're going to discuss, that's enough on that. The only other thing in terms of page 15 and the workforce profile. Obviously, some of these are going to be accurate, aren't they? We know how many female firefighters we've got and how many black and ethnic minority. I made mention this before in terms of lesbian, gay and bisexual percentage of the workforce. I mean, I would suggest, I know what you're saying in terms of census, but every information we've got, it's about 10% of the population. Obviously, people are going to answer a census differently if asked about sexual preference, aren't they? And there's a whole host of issues around that. I'm just wondering what we can do. I know we've got support groups, because our figures are likely to be better than that, to encourage people to come out at work or at least disclose that, because then it would look better. I mean, I'm a football supporter, for example. There's hardly any, if any, out gay footballers. Obviously, we all know that there's going to be gay footballers. It's just it's a cultural thing. So I'm just wondering what we're doing on that in terms of other things, to encourage. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, huge amounts. I mean, we've worked with Stonewall for a number of years, and we got into their top 100 over a few years as well. We've changed our policies over the years. We've improved our training. The LGBT plus network is really active and prominent, not just internally but externally. You look at the attendance that we get at Pride, at Worksop Pride, of staff coming forwards, of allies in the organisation stepping forwards to assist as well, is really strong. We do targeted advertising. I think our profile has been raised massively over the last few years. So I think it's probably a continuation of all of the above, to be honest. I don't think there's much that we're missing from that perspective. I take on board your point around the numbers. You look at the support staff figures, they are obviously better than the operational world, and you've referred to that. And so I think it will be us continuing to do what we've been doing because it's working. So I can't see it much different to what we currently do.
No, I'm with you on that. I mean, we've been to Pride, I saw Damien at Pride, and we had a great, there's a lot of things we do visibly. It's just changing the culture, I suppose, in stations, to be frank, isn't it? That's what it looks like to me in the stats, possibly, because it's different elsewhere. The other thing I wanted to talk about is on the disabled part of the workforce. Are we using the Equality Act definition? So it's a condition that's likely to be a year or more, it requires medication, because if so, again, that could be probably higher if we made more colleagues aware of that. Some colleagues might be actually classed as disabled under the law but haven't declared it.
Yeah, we try to go beyond compliance. We try wherever possible to assume that people are covered by the Equality Act, regardless of whether a doctor would agree with us, and we will put reasonable adjustments in place for staff wherever we can. I think the thing that we've been doing more of just recently is looking at non-visible disability and impairment. Yeah. Neurodiversity is emerging as a condition, as a trend that we need to be considering more. So we're improving our training for staff and for managers, and making sure that people understand that actually reasonable adjustments is not just about the physical barriers in the workplace. It's about some of the things that might be to do with the way people learn or the way people work more in a different way. So we are putting those in place, and we're very cognizant of that. I know Nick's colleagues in HR are very aware of it as well, and we work together to make sure that adjustments are put in place for staff.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, we just got to need to declare as well, don't we? So if we don't know, we can't make the adjustments. But I suppose you're the expert there. Yeah. Is there any other questions there, colleagues, or points to raise? No. Okay. So in terms of that, then, I don't think there's many implications on that. We'll just to be noted the contents of the report. We're happy to do so, colleagues.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Next, we've got whole-time recruitment process.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a report which summarises the outcome of the recent whole-time firefighter recruitment process, which took place between April and August last year. Matt's team did a huge amount of work relating to the positive action activities, so I'm going to ask Matt to just talk you through the detail of the report, and then happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Leila. So this whole time process took place, as Leila says, the positive action took place over April to August, and then the process itself began later on that year, and we completed, I'm going to say in January, Nick. Yeah. We completed the process in January. We were supported during the process and during the positive action by Futures Group, the careers and employment advisors who work in Nottingham and Nottinghamshire. Some of the work that we did was targeted advertising, weekly fitness sessions aimed at women but open to all, targeted poster and leaflet drops, radio advertising on Dawn FM, Kemet, Radio Fazar, and other adverts. We made sure that all job centres, we were working with Department for Work and Pensions to make sure that all job centres were aware of the work that we were doing. You can see at 2.4 that there's a rigorous recruitment process that we put people through. We had 461 applicants, and this led to 34 being successful. The rates of success for those different groups were, for women, were 14.7%, for ethnic minority candidates 24%, and for LGBT candidates 14.7% as well. Just need to focus on the ethnic minority candidates there. That's the best proportion. I've been in this organisation a long time now, and that's by far the best performance we've had in terms of ethnic minority candidates, which is really, really good to see. And so those people will be coming through. They're just starting, I think it's next week on Monday, I think.
Yes, Monday, the trainee
they're
course.
Starting their trainee course. There'll be 17 new firefighters starting on Monday up at our Service Development Centre at Ollerton. And then there'll be another course scheduled for January. I just want to reiterate what Leila was saying about the hard work that our team have put in. So Sonny Roberts and Ganinda Nagi particularly have worked really, really hard across communities with the comms team to make sure that everybody is aware of that firefighting is a career for everybody. And I'm really pleased to say that that's had some impact. 15 of the 34 people who were actually successful came along to the positive action and encouragement events, firefighter a day and that for a day and that kind of thing. So it demonstrates that the work that we do prior to the process really does work, and so it's good to see that impact analysis within the report. But other than that, I wasn't going to go into any further detail.
Hey colleagues, questions? Go.
Thank you, Chair. I'm from page 27 again. As they mentioned there, quite a few successful. Even the 14.7 were women.
Yep.
From the black and Asian minority ethnic background. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really pleased with the authority. They're doing really good advertise and working very hard to get all the communities to come forward. And I think they used to be, I think they're still under, representative, but they're coming forward and they should fill the gaps and all that. And I think the people likes the jobs and but sometimes they don't understand.
Yeah.
And now I'm very pleased with the authority. You are doing a really, really good job, and encouraging people from all the communities and joining for authorities, because it is very, very important for everybody and for authority as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, well done, the group. This is the best I've seen since I've been in Fair Authority. You've really done well this time around, and pleased to see what you've done this period, this time.
Thank you.
It's really positive, isn't it? And widening the talent pool, so we're going to get a more efficient service that people applying. I mean, when you look at the figures here, we're talking about in the last part of the meeting, for example, nearly 15% are LGBT plus are identified. That's 4 times the amount we've currently got. So this shows there's a cultural change here. Lots more women, people from ethnic minority backgrounds. All that's really positive, and I suppose it's finally working, isn't it? So we're turning it round, I think. So I think that's something to be celebrated, really, isn't it? So that's good.
You're right.
And then hopefully they'll bring some energy and as well as talent into the organisation. Is there anything else on that, colleagues? No, okay. So we're just, I think we're just noting it, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Right, we're on to HMI CFRS Values and Culture Spotlight Report Update.
Thank you, Chair. So the original report from HMIC FRS relating to values and culture was published about a year ago, and an initial report was brought to HR committee. This is a follow-up report to just set out for members the progress that's been made against the recommendations within the values and culture report. So the reason that this report came about is because of the significant number of negative media reporting that there's been at various services within the sector relating to values, behaviour and culture. So the Inspectorate reviewed all of the Tranche 2 inspections which they'd undertaken and pulled together a consolidated report of findings and subsequent recommendations. Some of those recommendations were for government and policymakers in terms of, for example, changes to legislation relating to disclosure and barring service checks, and some of the recommendations were for chief fire officers to implement. So the report summarises the recommendations that were relevant for the service itself and the progress that we've made against it. So as set out within section 2.2, within the Spotlight report there were 35 recommendations, 20 of which were owned by chief fire officers. Of those, 12 have now been completed and work is well underway on the remaining 8 recommendations. The full list of recommendations has been set out within Appendix A for your information. Section 2.3 bullets the full range of activity which has been undertaken to implement the recommendations, and I suppose at this point I'd just like to say as well that this activity and this work is over and above the other work which the service was already prioritising in terms of implementing and reinforcing the values in the core code of ethics, which have been the service values have been around for nearly a decade now and are well understood by all staff, coupled with implementation of the core code of ethics. So really this isn't the totality of the activity that's underway, but I've just picked out the key parts that are related to the recommendations themselves. So you can read those for yourselves. A few of the highlights which I will just draw your attention to. We've now got Say-So, which is an independent confidential reporting line available both to the public and staff, and that's an anonymous way that individuals can raise issues to the service. We've also worked to relaunch our Little Acorn scheme, which is one of a number of ways which we try to get workforce and staff engagement. So one of the themes that has come out in the Values and Culture report is about a reluctance of staff to raise concerns or raise issues. So we've tried a multitude of different routes to try and improve that. We've done a wholesale review of our policy framework in this area and have replaced our harassment and bullying policy with a dignity at work policy, which encompasses several of the policy recommendations that there were within the report. We've reviewed our the harassment and bullying cases which we receive, and we also have got a responsibility to onward report those to the inspectorate now, which we do, and have acted decisively to resolve issues where they've been brought to our attention. I think one of the other things that we've tried to do is to really amplify staff voice through not just communications channels, but we've now got members of staff who are actively engaged as part of our recruitment and selection panels for senior appointments, and we've got staff groups who are involved in a number of projects and procurements, so we can make sure that, for example, we're buying new equipment which is appropriate for all staff, and where we are investing in workplaces as part of our equality and inclusion priorities, we're making sure that all staff groups are engaged in those processes. Of the work that's still outstanding, the main part is related to the disclosure and barring service checks. So the recommendation within the report is that fire services look to extend beyond a basic check, and enhanced checks are undertaken for operational colleagues. So we've got a draft policy which is now in consultation with the unions, and we're hoping to have implemented shortly. I think when you talk about values and culture, a lot of the work that Matt's previously spoken about this morning in the committee is relevant in including looking at how we can enhance progression pathways for underrepresented groups, about how we can recruit to have a more diverse and a more representative workforce, and I'll look forward to bringing to a future meeting some more detail around the workforce diversity plans that we've got in place, which really look to the long term to build meaningful and lasting relationships with communities, so we can really start to enhance the numbers that are coming through for recruitment. So the service has made significant progress against the recommendations. I do acknowledge that there are a number of actions which, whilst in progress, have not been fully completed. So the recommendation is that members note progress against the report, but also agree to receive a future update, which I'd like to continue to bring until all recommendations are closed.
Thanks, Lena. Has anyone got any questions or points you'd like to raise? I think the only thing to talk about, and we've discussed this, Lena, as well, is in terms of the enhanced DBS check. That's come up elsewhere. We mentioned it at this report, and if colleagues know, people watching, obviously that's similar to what you have in education. Teachers have an enhanced DBS check. We actually have them as city councillors in Nottingham City, and I hope we can resolve that, because I think in terms of, I know some people might be worried and think it's intrusive, but we found the system to work quite well. Obviously, if you're in a position of responsibility, you could be going to other people's homes and that sort of thing. It's reassuring to know about that, and I think also, this has come about, if we put it in a sobering way, because obviously the Metropolitan Police and other things, there's been people employed who've committed serious criminal acts, then got employed, then committed serious criminal acts when they're in the service, and it's in national news. So it's terms to protect people, so there's people to consider that, although they can be worried about it. We'll talk to people. It doesn't bring up minor infractions. It's for stuff that's, that we all know is quite serious. So I know it's difficult, but hopefully we can resolve that. And it's obviously sensitive in an area where you've not had it before, but I've had one, and I've worked in a system for years where we've had to have enhanced DBS checks, and minor infractions from the youth, etc., ignored, but serious sexual and violent stuff comes up, obviously. So I don't know if anyone wants to comment on that, or if we're behind to note the report. Okay, we'll take a future report. Is that okay, colleagues?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the meeting. Thank you very much for your work and your attendance. Much appreciated.